If you look at the auditing side, in my view, I think we should be thinking about our opinions addressing not just whether or not the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance, but that they're fairly presented and in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We need to also link the audit reporting model to the new financial reporting model, recognizing that if you're talking about historical versus projection versus performance, you can't give the same level of assurance for that, and we need to recognize that reality and modify it appropriately. Going concern. Boy, talking about a lag indicator, you issue a going concern qualification when you think the patient's going to die within a year. I think it's a little late. Now, believe it or not, right now people can do things that they all too frequently don't do, short of a going concern opinion, by having an emphasis paragraph. And quite frankly, when I was Comptroller General of the United States, I did that several years ago. I didn't issue a going concern qualification for the United States because I was fairly confident we were going to last more than a year. Okay? At the same point in time, it was very, very clear to me that we were on an imprudent and unsustainable path, and really bad things were going to happen over time unless we started doing something. So we put an emphasis paragraph in the financial statements in order to draw attention to a number of things without issuing a going concern qualification. Those things could have happened, quite frankly, with regard to a lot of financial institutions that either went out of business or required bailouts within the last year, and they weren't done. They weren't done. Practices that were clearly high-risk strategies that may or may not pay off, but they were clearly high-risk strategies and with a great degree of risk and volatility associated with them. I think we need to move towards global standards. But we also need to recognize that for certain situations, for example, for public company investments and where individuals can invest in widely traded securities, that we need to be able to hedge bets against people trying to go the lowest common denominator for global standards. That's not in our interest. And therefore, you need to make sure that the SEC and other appropriate players are there to provide supplemental required disclosures or other information in order to protect investors in public companies and public securities. In the case of your federal government, and I'm going to ask a question that's a little bit embarrassing, but you shouldn't feel bad because very few people ever raise their hand. How many people have ever read the financial statements of the United States government? I'm not expecting to see many hands here. Please raise them high. Harold, thank you very much. I'm not surprised. One. No, wait a minute. Two. We just doubled it. You know, it's our country. All right? There are financials. They are audited. All right? It's statement of net cost, statement of net assets, which is the balance sheet, statement of changes in operations, net position, reconciling the accrual to the budget, which is largely cash-based, statement of social insurance. Believe it or not, the biggest numbers in the financial statements are the social insurance numbers, tens of trillions. Guess what? The only financial statement that's got a clean opinion is the statement of social insurance. The only one. And the reason that that's the case is because the Defense Department has something to do with every other one, and their books are a mess, an absolute mess, okay? And it's probably going to be at least 10 years before they're going to be auditable. Good news is that some of the things I talked to you about starting to focus on performance information and projection information, the federal government's actually starting to do that. And in fact, you know, during my tenure, they promulgated the Statement of Social Insurance, which has got the biggest numbers, and we were able to issue a clean opinion on it at GAO before I left. But just within the last month, the Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board has issued a new statement that deals with fiscal stewardship, long range, 75 years. Where are we headed? What are the intergenerational implications associated therewith? These are the social insurance programs with the big numbers, over $40 trillion in current dollar terms, of which Medicare is the largest, at underwater about $38 trillion. Social Security is underwater about $7.7 trillion. 7.7 is a lot of money, but compared to Medicare, it's chump change. I'm going to skip through some of this. This is a lot of detail. I would encourage you to take a look at a lot. Those are summaries of what the current social insurance standard is, the summary of the current standard that was just issued on fiscal sustainability. There's a lot of detail there, and it's late in the afternoon, so you have it to be able to peruse at your leisure.